Hi friends, it's Pam here. Thanks for dropping by. Here's a little corner of my living room. I wanted to talk today about quitting. So, have you ever quit something or wanted to quit something or maybe held out forever and not quitting? I recently watched a video by, let me just make sure I get her name right, Jacqueline Wester. And her channel is called Rewild Diaries, and I will link it below. And it brought to my mind again this idea of learning to quit, learning to stop while you're ahead, right? Have you ever heard that saying? To stop while you're ahead. So it made me remember, and it seems so long ago now that I quit teaching in the classroom. But it made me remember the process, first of all, of realizing, that something was wrong, and the slow process of accepting that even though I really wanted to keep going, because I'm the kind of person who, like I know a lot of you really want to have that grit, right? You really want to dig in and never quit. And that's kind of what I often thought. You just reinvent, you keep going. And every teacher, especially, at least the ones that I know, they kind of want to get to that finish line, right? They want to get to, the retirement. Now, because I didn't teach in the public system, I wouldn't get anything for retirement anyway. It's a lot to explain, but so it's a little bit different. The finish line wasn't this age, right, or date, and so it was a little bit different. But I really wanted to revisit that idea and think about why we don't quit sometimes when maybe we should, and why we're conditioned to hold on for a really long time. Do you keep doing things long after they have stopped making sense? Long after they stopped bringing you joy? That's my question that I wrote in my little book for this video. So growing up, being reliable and being responsible were really instilled into me. So much that now as an adult, when I was going through what my core values are, reliability and taking responsibility, sorry, let me have a little sip of something here. You know what this is? It's my first time having it for many years. It's Ovaltine. Have you ever heard of that? I thought I'd give it a try. I bought it for my husband as kind of a, I don't know, just an I love you gift, because he often talks about when he was a kid and always having a glass of Ovaltine or a mug of Ovaltine. And then I thought, I should try that. All right, rewind. Where were we? I was talking about the core values of being reliable, being responsible, and how important those are. And so I really notice when someone is reliable and responsible, and I want to be that way myself. So quitting seems like you're both unreliable and you're not being responsible, right? You're not taking full responsibility. So that was a hard thing for me to kind of realize. And even though I didn't have this goal in my head of teaching for 30 years, something like that, I did teach from 2001 to 2023, but it wasn't straight through. Like I had some part-time. I had a couple of years where I taught piano and voice lessons. I had also a couple of years where I worked as an educational assistant and a speech language assistant or liaison. So I did have a smattering of different things in there. So I can't say I taught, all the way through, but I was in the classroom basically in some shape or form since then. Well, sticking with it when it gets hard has been a sort of motto for my life. It's how I was raised. Keep on keeping on could be what is framed in the living room walls of people in my community, instead of those live, laugh, love, the plaques that used to be so popular some years ago. You could have keep on keeping on or stick to it. That would be a good motto. I've definitely stayed too long in friendships or relationships, refusing to see what was obvious. So this quitting thing, it's not just about projects or hobbies or jobs or what we're doing. It's also people sometimes, and wanting to be really reliable, it's super loyal, kept me kind of clinging to friendships, relationships where there wasn't anything left. Like there wasn't anything to stay for, or the friend had proven over and over again that they really didn't care about me. I couldn't see it for a long time. So I would just hang in there and keep showing up. And eventually there'd be something that would kind of tweak my brain to say, is this a good place to be? Is this a good person? How much time are you willing to keep investing in this relationship? And then I would figure it out. But it always took a while. And projects too, pushing through and not being aware enough to realize, I don't even like this. Have you ever started something and maybe you bought all the things for it, and you thought, well, I've got all this stuff, I have to do it. And you suddenly realized, man, I really don't like this. Well, some things it's good to push through, like school, like finishing an essay, like piano lessons. That was hard, but I did stick to it. I think I took 1 year off, and I'm really glad that I pushed through and stuck to that. So this doesn't apply to everything, right? But if it's something that you've just kind of realized, I'm done, right? Sometimes quitting is exactly what we need to do. In relationships with others, that might mean realizing when we're being manipulated. So that happened to me. I had someone in my life that I realized was just twisting things, manipulating conversations. I've had people in my life just send me things that they know that I like, right? And then they say, oh yeah, I know you like that. And I kind of realized, oh, they're just trying to pull me into a conversation. They don't really care about me, that they're not sending it to me as a blessing. They're just sending it to me as a manipulation tactic, right? Sometimes it's hard to tell those apart. Right now I'm pushing through to keep offering voice lessons online over Zoom. So that's kind of like one little thing that has been kind of challenging, to teach voice lessons over Zoom. And if I had the proper microphone, if I had headphones, if there's a really clear connection, I think it would be quite doable. But there's just been a lot of roadblocks, and I just keep pushing through thinking next week's going to be better. Next week I'll be more prepared. I'll figure out the sound. But it's kind of getting to the point where, why am I doing this again? The frustration, the headache. Is it really worth it? So anyway, I'll let you know what happens with that. Because I think, and maybe you're like this too, you keep thinking success is right around the corner, right? I just need to get to the next bend in the road, and then it'll be great, right? It's just this one last hurdle, and then there'll be smooth sailing. And so those are the things that play in my mind a lot, and it keeps me kind of locked into patterns or keeping on going when I really should have stopped a long time ago. But sometimes that is the way it is in life, right? These things aren't cut and dried. They're not really black and white. Sometimes you do stop too soon, right? I mean, this video is kind of about knowing when to quit. And I'm thinking, well, sometimes we need to quit faster, quit quicker. But it's also true that sometimes we do have to push through and maybe, the next time it'll be successful, right? So I don't know. What do you think? How do you know? How do you find those lines? So anyway, the thought that success is just around the next bend sometimes keeps me running in races I'm not even meant to be in. So just kind of bringing it back to the little red book here. Yeah, so my decision to quit teaching was pretty clear. There was like a neon sign flashing. I mean, I had a full-on like diabetic, crisis. That's how I figured out I was diabetic, was in my last job interview when I was teaching at the school here in the town that we live in. And so there were so many neon signs pointing to like, you need to not do this. But I was mentally and logically determined that this was a good fit, that this is exactly where I was supposed to be, that it was my calling. And so it kind of took running right up against brick walls to stop me. And yeah, eventually I did. And I still feel a lot of guilt and a sense of failure about that decision. Yeah, and that's the thing we want to avoid, right? When we quit something, we don't want to feel, or I don't want to feel that sense of guilt that I gave up, or I gave up on someone that I shouldn't have given up on. But sometimes quitting is the most wise, rational, and life-giving thing in front of us that we should be doing. Once I stopped teaching, it was amazing how much better I felt, even just making the decision. So when I decided, okay, I'm going to finish out this year, but I'm done with this particular school and this particular position, man, the relief, right? It gave me enough hope to keep going, and all kinds of new life came into me, ideas, and I have to kind of be careful and tend those ideas so they don't get out of control. I have all kinds of like, well, I should do this on this day, and I could probably add this to this day, and I really don't want to get to that brick wall of total burnout again. But sometimes it's really hard to hold back, and you feel kind of guilty about it. C.S. Lewis, I love C.S. Lewis. He said something that I refer to often, or I think about often. This is a quote: "If you are on the wrong road, progress means doing an about turn and walking back to the right road. And in that case, the man who turns back soonest is the most progressive." And he isn't using the word progressive like we would use it in 2025. He's the one who's making the most progress. So even though it looks like you might be wasting time, the faster you realize that you need to quit and stop and turn back and find your right road, the more progress you're actually making. And I found it really helpful to think of it that way, right? Rather than year after year dragging myself towards some imaginary finish line. And what was I hoping for? Like a little applause, I don't know, right? Personal satisfaction. Maybe some of those things. There are times when the best progress we can make is to stop. And I jotted down some things to stop. Stop texting that person who is causing so much drama or confusion. Maybe think about that one. Stop going to the meeting or the group where you feel drained or unseen. Stop saying yes to every request. In fact, just stop picking up your phone every time it buzzes. But then, we never know if it's going to be our kids. And then we have to pick it up. So I don't know about that one. Stop working at that place where you aren't given respect. Respect. That was a lot of it for me. So if you're not getting the respect where you are that you deserve and need, then maybe question, like, what am I putting myself through this for, right? And try and find places and people that will give you the respect that you deserve. Stop trying to complete that project that hasn't been fun or life-giving for months now. Just let it go. So back to the projects. When we stop and clear out rooms in our life, we create space for something new or space to just be. We need discernment and wisdom to know when to stick with it and when it's time to quit. We can pause in a quiet place and listen and hear the answer. It takes courage, but sometimes turning around is the fastest way to get where you need to go. Are there things that you might need to quit? Are there places where life is draining you, where you could, put a stop in that? Take time to evaluate. Don't make rash decisions based on current emotion, right? So I had some days at the school where I was like an emotional basket case inside. I didn't show it outside much, but inside I was like just freaking out. I was angry. I was recognizing all these toxic things, and I was frustrated and I was sad, and in that moment, it was tempting sometimes to just stomp out of there, right? But it's good to take the time, talk to people that know you well, make good, rational decisions. And ask yourself, is this dream I had bringing me joy in life, or has it turned into a nightmare? So that's a good thing to ask. Like, am I waking up every morning feeling like, oh no, the sense of dread, this nightmare? Or am I waking up? Sure, there's hard things, cold floor, coffee not made, you're running late. I don't know. There's little trials and tribulations, but it's not this horrible feeling of dread, right? It's impossible to live like that. Okay, promise you I'm wrapping it up here. It's easy to be on autopilot and ignore how we actually feel. So if you feel like you're on autopilot, or if there's something that you're dreading, maybe just think about it a little bit. Talk to someone in your life that you trust and say, should I keep doing this? Or is it time to quit? Quitting doesn't mean that you are not loyal. It doesn't mean that you aren't strong. It doesn't mean that you don't have grit. It sometimes takes more grit, right, and courage to say, no, I am not going one more step in this direction. And I hope that if you decide to quit something, that you really take your time with it, but also recognize that when we stop something, we open up doors to beautiful views, new life, new opportunities, and new growth. All right, thanks so much for being here and listening, and I will see you again, hopefully, really soon. Bye.